Hello, my name is Connie Liu. I'm an undergraduate at MIT, and today we're going to be going a little more in depth about the origin of species. So, in order to do that, we're going to talk about the history of Darwin and his different experiments and observations that led to the quintessential Origin of Species book and a lot of the current ideas about evolution. So, this is Darwin. So sometime in the 1800s, he traveled over to the Galapagos Islands on a boat, and there he made a lot of different observations. So here I'm showing a lot of different islands, and at each of the islands, what Darwin found is that a lot of the birds had different beaks. So if you look at this one right here, it has a curved beak. This one has a straighter beak. This one has a smaller beak. And this one has kind of a medium-sized beak. And Darwin saw all of these and then came up with the hypothesis that the reason that all of these birds had different beaks was not because they were completely different. They actually came from a similar origin, hence origin of species. And then they had probably shared a common ancestor that all lived on one island at some point, and then they split off into their respective islands and found different types of food. And in order to get all the nutrients from their food and stay alive, natural selection came into play. And then the ones with the beaks that were more prone to getting the better food and being able to eat nuts or eat bugs were able to survive on these islands, and then that led to the idea of survival of the fittest. The fittest ones had the beaks that were best suited for the type of food and the type of environment that they were living in, and thus those birds were the ones that had more children and then propagated throughout the island, and that's why the whole bird species on each island began to have distinctive features such as beak shape. Um, and these were very, very important observations made by Darwin because they created a very unifying theme throughout all of the species, and that's the unity in life. He came up with this theory that everything comes from some other ancestor, and then we all look different because we all evolved to adapt to our environments properly. And then that's the idea of natural selection. The reason that we look how we do and then act how we do is in order to survive the best in our environment. But we all shared some common ancestor before all of those adaptations came into play. And then all of these findings that Darwin found were all written into his book called On the Origin of Species, which was published in 1858. Down here is Darwin again with his newly published book. But essentially, Darwin is such an important name in science because he was basically the father of evolutionary theory and then came up with a lot of these very, very important ideas that essentially came down to the origin of all the species.